Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Inspire Dog podcast, hosted by myself, Ben Rimbey of the Fairly Odd Dogs, Lucky My Dog Training, and now this brand new podcast, the Inspire Dog podcast. Hope you enjoy. So I've been wanting to start a podcast for a long time now, and we're finally here. We're finally doing the thing. It was super, super cool. And we're going to be hopefully having it on all podcast platforms, but we're also going to video, hopefully most of them, and post them to our YouTube channel as well. Should be able to find our YouTube right now under the Fairly Odd Dogs, and we're also the Fairly Odd Dogs on like all social media platforms. But we wanted to make this the Inspire Dog podcast because we're looking to inspire people and their dogs to do more, have more fun, and just live better lives in general. So this is going to be pretty much a dog-specific podcast, and we're going to go over pretty much all subjects. Now, you may or may not know who I am, and I think it'd be good to start off by giving a little bio before we get into our subject today. So a little bit about me. My name is Ben Rimbey. I'm a professional dog trainer. I do dog training full time. I got my first dog in 2013, January 2013. I adopted my first dog, Yonzi, a miniature Australian Shepherd. I know, miniature American Shepherd, but at that time it was kind of in the works. But technically, he could be registered as a mini American. But we didn't really do that because we don't really care all that much about that sort of a thing. We have a lot of rescue dogs, and a dog we just got just recently who's from a breeder is a mix, a super mutt, but sport bred. So we're not like breed specific need to be this way. We're not against that. We just don't really care all that much about that either. But to each their own. If you are, that's totally cool. You'll still fit right in here on the Inspire Dog podcast, whatever floats your boat. We just want to make sure everyone's having fun with their dogs and having a good old time. So I'm a professional dog trainer now. I do that full time through our business, Lucky My Dog Training, where we help a lot of people throughout the Twin Cities, but we also do consultations virtually for people across the world as well. And we compete in different dog sports too for fun. And we also do performances with our dogs as well. So we do disc dog or frisbee dog, whatever you want to call it, competitively. That's like our sport. We used to do some agility, dock diving, fly ball, and we still dabble in all those sports and some others too. But disc dog is our main sport. We used to just do it as a backyard sport. That's all I thought it was. And then I learned about the competition side of it here through the Minnesota Disc Dog Club here in Minnesota. But there's clubs across the country and across the world that you can compete in, get together, and have fun playing frisbee with your dogs. That's one of our main sports. But we also do that through performances too. We go to Timberwolves games and other colleges, and we perform at halftime with the dogs doing frisbee dog tricks and stunts. Super fun. Now, that's a little bit about me. I've been doing this for over a decade now and doing dog training full time as like my only job since 2021. But previously, I was doing dog training on the side for many years, and we became dog enthusiasts through the dogs we first got. And my first dog, Yonzi, who I brought up a second ago, and then my wife, Anna, when she adopted Zoe. And we met when Zoe was about 10 months old and Yonzi was like about 2 years old. And those dogs brought us down the route of becoming kind of crazy dog people. So that's a little bit about me. Now, I really want to jump into today's subject. Okay. I think it's a subject that is maybe going to be the most important subject we cover in this entire series. So just starting off with a bang, it's something that I don't hear covered nearly enough in the dog world. We're going to cover a lot of different subjects of this podcast, but maybe the most important one is emotional regulation of your dog and also for you too. So we'll look at both parallels here. And I want to go over a really easy way to visualize what your dog's going through on a day-to-day basis, and think a particular visualization of what's maybe holding them back in most situations, or what's the root cause of most of your issues. So at the root of it all, just think about this. Your dog has a mental bucket. Visualize a bucket, okay? And things that happen throughout the day add in to this bucket. Some dogs have very small buckets. So it fills extremely quickly. A couple things, and it could be overflowing. Other dogs have more naturally large buckets, and they can handle a lot more. I think about the people who go, I have the best dog ever. My kids can crawl all over them. Those dogs likely have very big buckets, even though they probably don't like the kids crawling all over them. They're able to handle it. While there's also many dogs who don't like being crawled all over, and they might have smaller buckets, or they have a big bucket, but kids crawling on them fills it up really quickly. It just depends on the dog. So doesn't mean they're a bad dog. They just have a smaller bucket or particular things fill it up quicker. We got to look at all those things on a day to day basis. And I also think about this from the human perspective, the dog owner, the dog guardian. What kind of a bucket do they have when handling situations? Because guess what? When your dog barks at something and you're in public, that might fill up your bucket extremely quickly. We all know the people who it doesn't, they don't seem to care at all. But for a lot of people, that bugs them like crazy. And then they have a harder time making rational decisions or handling the decision with grace or in the way that the dog would probably work out of the situation better if they were handled with a little more positivity, a little more grace and guiding them to what to do instead of showing what not to do all the time, because it's harder to make those decisions properly and harder to act properly and manage the situation properly, I guess is what I'm really trying to say. When you're under a lot of stress and your mental bucket is really full. So your bucket's full, your dog's bucket's full. And a lot of times that's where I see dog owners and guardians struggle. And I see them start yelling at their dog, telling them to knock it off. That's where you might see somebody jerking the leash around. Stop it, knock it off. Things like that. So we all need some strategies to help this out, right? And we'll be getting into those strategies on future podcasts for sure, like without a doubt. But we really want to look into what are things that might fill your dog's bucket. And I also want you to think a bit about what might fill your bucket, which is example, maybe your dog barking. Some people might be just their dog pacing might fill your bucket. Maybe you have kids. And maybe since you've had kids, it's been a lot harder to maintain a nice level of your bucket. Maybe you hit over threshold quickly and your bucket's full. So water's splashing everywhere. And it's hard to handle the situations how you know you're supposed to because you're overstimulated. Your kids are overstimulating and they might be overstimulated. And then your dog might be overstimulated by all that too. And then we're all just kind of in this big mess, you know? So, but this is the Inspire Dog podcast. So let's look at the dog portion of this. And what are things that might fill your dog's bucket, whether you're in the house, whether you're outside, wherever. When you're inside, maybe looking out the window at things could fill their bucket. Hearing the doorbell go off could fill their bucket. You walking around and just existing could fill their bucket. Human movement is a big time bucket filler for a lot of dogs, especially like herding dogs or movement or like dogs who are obsessed with movement. It could be any dog, but like that's a big thing. So it's something we always got to look at when we're assessing these situations. When you're outside, some dogs are just getting outside, right? Putting the leash on could be a bucket filler. And then you're like, oh my God, we're already at a full bucket. Dog's bouncing off the walls and we're about to go for a walk where I'm expecting you to pay attention to me. Holy cannoli. It's going to be crazy, right? But it's all workable. It's all doable. It's not doom and gloom. We're looking at the bad stuff here, but we're going to be kind of guiding towards what can we do to help this situation, right? But at the end of the day, walking out the door might be a big bucket filler. And then you get outside and there's squirrels, there's bunnies, there's people walking their dogs, hopefully on leash. There's people, there's runners, there's bicyclists, there's cars. You know how many cars set dogs off? It's crazy all the time. Cattle dogs, I think they think they're cows or something. I just worked with a corgi recently. Also, I believe really set off by cars. But we got there and we had to help make his bucket bigger so he can handle more and have some strategies in the moment so that he can handle it better. And also, you can feel confident, the owner can feel confident in what to do, which also helps their mental bucket stay at a nice level. I think that's a big part of it. So, a lot of different things that could fill up a dog's bucket on a walk in anywhere in life. And you might even notice the moment you step outside, your dog stops taking treats. Maybe they'll take their food and their treats inside, but they won't take them outside. It's because their bucket's too full outside. They're not very comfortable, maybe outside. They're either way too excited or maybe pretty fearful. Both are bucket fillers, and all things that we need to take a look at. And when you're in that situation, you do really need to take a step back from what you normally do and go to quiet areas and just hang out. And eventually, your dog will likely start taking treats, but it does take time and it does not always happen overnight. But I don't know if I've ever worked with a dog that didn't start to. There's, yeah, it does come along. But I work with a lot of dogs who people thought it was impossible with. But with some time and some patience, they can work it. And the whole goal is to train them to be able to work with you, not just by pushing treats in their face, although I am not anti-treat pushing by any means. I love pushing treats. I'm like I'm like just the bank, but I'm not a bank that holds on to the money. I'm just like giving it out. I love to give treats. But I'm kind of walking and working with the dogs to try to build connection with me. I'm trying to build the ability to disengage from other things in the environment. I'm trying to add value to sniffing and calming down. I love it when dogs sniff on walks, right? It's a huge way to lower the arousal levels and empty some of the bucket. So at the end of the day, the mental bucket plays a massive role in what our dogs are doing on a day-to-day basis. And most of the things that bug us about our dog's behavior, you can relate to their mental bucket. So next time that your dog is seemingly just being disobedient, and I laugh at that because, you know, who cares? We need him to listen at times for sure, but like, come on. We don't need to be too uptight about it, in my opinion. But the next time your dog's out of control, losing their mind a bit, and it's like, what the heck is going on here? You're acting so different. Or why are you off the wall? Crazy. Or why are you so fearful that you're not doing anything? It's all related to their mental bucket. And we need to start looking at strategies on how to empty that bucket quickly and how we can grow the bucket so that they can handle more. Okay. So, some quick strategies, they're very quick one to help you out on the go is you can give your dog a passive calmness activity to do. If you're like in the house and they're kind of crazy, and instead of punishing them and thinking, you got to stop doing this and you're yelling at them, chasing them around, I don't know what you're doing, honestly, but it's just things I hear people do or I see people do. Give them a chew to do. Give them that's a passive calmness activity. Give them a Kong that's like a filled Kong. If they could work through a Kong, like with some peanut butter in it, then start freezing it for a longer term one. If a Kong is too difficult for them, definitely don't freeze it. Or get West Paw Topples. West Paw Topples are great. There's also many other dog enrichment activities, and these are activities that dogs can do that they can lick and just have some fun with, and it'll help calm them down. Puzzles are also great. I really like the Snoop by Planet Dog. It's a especially if your bucket's filling up and like there's also a Kong wobbler. A lot of people have heard of that. It's like a Kong, but it's really big. It's plastic, has a weighted bottom. Dogs can knock it around, knock food out. But it's loud as hell. Like it's the loudest thing. If you're already overstimulated by all this stuff going on, the Kong wobbler is not going to help you with that. But your dog's going to enjoy it, probably. But I really like the Snoop by Planet Dog because it's quiet. It's so quiet. It's like the quietest puzzle. And it's also like pretty durable for like the material it is. I haven't really had dogs mess it up. I can't count. I think like maybe one or two have I had of my dogs have ever done it, but I have dogs who are super chewers who just never ruin those. So those are pretty awesome. I like those for help keep your mental bucket low and give your dog something to do. Like, oh, you're doing something. Hey, let's do this instead. And doing some enrichment activities like that can help calm them down. You might even just throw some food on the ground. Just Toss some food on the ground. Give them a little scatter. Eating things off the ground is calming. Calms them right down. Great little strategy to do if you're kind of losing your mind a little bit. We need ways to come out of it without going straight to punishment. But I think a lot of people go to punishment when they're overstimulated, their bucket's full. Dog's bucket's full. What the heck? My bucket's full. Ah! We don't need to do that. But we need strategies on how to get out of it. And in the coming weeks, we'll see. I'll try to go over some concept training games that you can start implementing a little bit. We'll also be working on building some new courses, some online courses you guys can take a look at and purchase if you would like. That'll go way more in depth on all of this and give more step by step guidelines on how to go about building better emotional regulation and how to grow the mental bucket, how to empty it quicker. We'll build a more of a step-by-step guideline for that too. But I really hope that this helped. I really hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Inspire Dog podcast. Again, you can find us on most social media platforms under the Fairly Odd Dogs, at Fairly Odd Dogs, like the Fairly Odd Parents, but dogs. We had a bunch of last chosen dogs early on, like ones that were returned or the last ones chosen. So we decided for the Fairly Odd Dogs. They're kind of the odd ones out. That's where that all came from. And it kind of stuck. We've had that handle for many, many years. You can also find us at Lucky Mutt Dog Training, and you can shoot us a message on any of those platforms. Be happy to help you out. And we do have the Inspire Dog on Instagram and TikTok as well, and Fairly Odd Dogs on YouTube. So check us out everywhere. Hopefully you subscribe to this podcast because we got many, many, many more episodes to come. Thank you.